You ever wonder why you were the black sheep? Why the ones who were supposed to love you didn't see you? Why you could be in a room full of family, church, or friends and still feel like you're on the outside, looking in? Maybe you've replayed every holiday in your head, sitting at the table, but feeling a million miles away. You laugh when they laugh. You try to blend in, but deep down, it's like there's a wall nobody else can see. Maybe you spent years asking, what's wrong with me? You started thinking you were too sensitive, too emotional, or just born with some kind of flaw you couldn't name. The world has a way of making us believe that being different is the same as being defective. When you don't fit, you start shrinking yourself to fit the mold, hoping someone finally calls you in from the cold. But God, He had something else in mind. Let's get real. Rejection isn't just some concept or Bible lesson. It's pain. It's standing outside your own family and wondering if you'll ever feel home. Sometimes it's not even about harsh words. Sometimes it's just silence. The way people look past you or only reach for you when they need something. The way your questions go unanswered or your pain gets minimized, spiritualized, or ignored. But what if I told you the rejection wasn't random? What if it wasn't about being unwanted? What if it was God's hand, gently pulling you away from everything that was never meant to define you? Sometimes the pain that makes you question everything is actually God making room for something bigger. Sometimes it's not rejection, it's redirection. I know the ache of being misunderstood. I know what it's like to feel like the problem child. You try to be strong for everybody, but inside, you're worn out from fighting battles nobody even sees. Maybe you had a family who loved you, but never knew how to love you right. Or maybe you were the emotional one, the one who asked too many questions, the one who never quite belonged to the crowd or even the pew. Some people only know how to love what they understand. If they can't see your purpose, they call it a problem. But God always saw the reason behind your difference. He never called you a mistake. Think about every time you tried to blend in, every time you buried your real voice just to make peace, every time you agreed just so the tension would stop, every time you felt like you had to earn your place, prove your worth, carry the weight of other people's silence. All those moments shaped you. All those lonely nights, all those tears you never let anyone see. I believe God lets His chosen ones walk alone before He ever lifts them up. He knows that intimacy with Him grows best in isolation. That's not punishment, that's protection. He let them distance themselves so you would finally draw close to Him. There's a kind of closeness you only find when you run out of people to impress, when your crowd disappears and it's just you and God in the dark. You learn how to pray from your gut. You learn how to weep and still stand. You learn that even if you're left out by everybody else, you can never be left out by God. It hurts, yes, it's real. Some nights you wonder if it will ever change. You keep replaying old arguments, old birthdays, old wounds. You wonder if maybe, just maybe, you could have done something different, and they'd still be in your life. But hear me, it was never your job to make people see your value. That was never the assignment. Maybe you've got scars from things that never got talked about. The secrets your family swept under the rug. The church that smiled at you on Sunday but never asked where you went when you stopped showing up. The friends who only loved you as long as you played small. You learned to hide your pain. You learned to make yourself smaller, hoping that one day someone would finally say, "I see you. I get it. I'm glad you're here." But sometimes God lets those safety nets break, just so you stop trusting them to hold you up. He lets the doors close. He lets the texts go unanswered. He lets you stand alone, not because you're unlovable, but because he wants to teach you what real love actually feels like. His love. Maybe you feel like the black sheep, but in heaven's eyes, you're the chosen one. You weren't cast aside. You were set apart. Every no you received was actually God's way of making space for a yes you can't even see yet. You ever notice how some of the most called, most anointed people in the Bible were also the most rejected? Joseph was thrown out by his own brothers. David was left in the field while everyone else got invited in. Even Jesus was rejected in his own hometown. Rejection isn't always a curse. Sometimes it's the mark of those who will carry the deepest purpose. Your difference was never a flaw. It was a fingerprint, a sign you were marked for something that couldn't grow in the places you tried so hard to fit. If they had accepted you, maybe you would have stayed. Maybe you would have built your whole life around people who never saw the real you. Maybe you would have missed what God was whispering in the wilderness. Maybe the isolation, the lonely nights, the confusion and the grief. Maybe it was all God's way of bringing you to the end of yourself, so you could finally meet him as Father, not as a story, not as a Sunday school lesson, but as someone who sits with you in your real, raw, honest pain. There's a purpose in your loneliness. There's a calling in your difference. There's healing in your questions. You're not cursed. You're being cultivated. God has never wasted a single tear. Every ache you've carried, he's seen. Every wound you've tried to hide, he's touched. He's not angry with you. He's not disappointed in your struggle. He's been right there in the silence, holding you together even when you thought you'd fall apart. Maybe nobody ever told you this, but you don't have to keep auditioning for love. You don't have to keep chasing the ones who don't know how to hold you. You don't have to keep explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. God already knows your heart. He knows your history. He knows what it costs you to keep showing up, even when you want to disappear. He sees the black sheep. He loves the black sheep. He calls the black sheep by name and says, "You're mine." The pain you feel is real, but it's not the end of your story. Your scars are not evidence of God's absence. They're proof that you survived things other people didn't even notice. They're proof that God has something bigger in mind. Let the rejection teach you, but don't let it define you. Let the loneliness deepen you, but don't let it turn you hard. Let the silence drive you closer to the only one who's never left. You were marked before you were ever misunderstood. You were called before you were ever cast aside. You were loved long before you felt alone. You're not too much. You're not too broken. You're not too late. You are chosen. The pain was real, but the protection was greater. The rejection was direction. So, if you're listening tonight, I just want you to know, God never left you. He's not going to start now. The story isn't over. The best chapters are still coming. Rest in the truth that you are seen, you are held, you are loved, and you have always been chosen. No pressure, no performance. Just let that truth settle in your spirit. You're not the black sheep. You're the chosen one.